Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cookbook. I'm Iris Goldfeder, your host, and I'm super excited about our guest today, Pallavi Ridout. She and I are in a LinkedIn pod together, and she's an executive coach, and she's just really awesome, and her story is really cool. So I'm going to read her bio and then bring her in. Okay, so Pallavi Ridout is an executive leadership coach and specializes in coaching corporate leaders and their teams on achieving their highest potential. She is also a life purpose transformation coach and helps professional women lead a life of no regrets by uncovering their purpose and leading a fulfilling life. Pallavi has an MBA from the George Washington University and completed her undergraduate degree in Pune, India. And I hope I got that right. If not, Pallavi, you can tell me. Pallavi is passionate about empowering women and provides pro bono coaching services to underserved communities in India, which is awesome. But her number one passion is her son, and in her spare time, she loves to travel and compete in Toastmasters International Speech Championships. And I'm laughing at that because she yells at me for saying So without further ado, let's meet Pallavi. Hey there.
Hi, Iris. I'm not going to count your ums today.
Well, honestly, it's so funny because, so let the audience know, when, I asked you to watch the podcast, you watched the first one, and I probably said like 5,000 ums, and you gave me this really great feedback, and you said, but there's a lot of ums. And so I've been really cognizant of it, and like I almost chuckle, like I'll say it and I'll be like, see, but it's part of it. Did I say the city in India correctly? Is it Pune?
Yes, you did a brilliant job of saying Pune, India, and you did a brilliant job of saying my name. I really appreciate that, Iris.
Well, I think that's super important. So you are an executive coach, and you also, why don't you tell us what more of what you do?
Yes, absolutely. So to make it sound a little bit more fun, right? Executive coach. What does an executive coach do? Well, I coach executives, not to be silly about it. But what I do is I help people really break through and find their true potential. So a lot of my executives who come to me, they are good operationally savvy people, but they might be stuck when it comes to how do I deal with people? How do I get the best out of them? So I like to say the more they need to be fixed, the more challenging and fun it is for me. So I do things like work with them on communication, emotional intelligence, executive presence, presentation skills. And so I work with C-level executives, CEOs included, and their direct reports up until mid-management. The other type of people I absolutely love to work with are what we call high potentials. So in a company, you have like this layer of people who are identified as the successor to so-and-so, or they have this potential to rise. I find they're so hungry. And when I coach them, it's just magic because they're willing to do all the transformation work. So that's what I do from my executive coaching perspective. I also like to say I facilitate very hairy conversations. So what does that mean? So, like corporate speak, I'll say I facilitate retreats and offsites, but it's all about being that neutral party, and you come in and you understand what the business problem they're trying to solve. And I don't need to know your business. I'm intuitive in the sense that I used to be an executive myself. So I get business. What I come in and I help people talk to each other and not kill each other, but talk in a productive way. Come up with innovation ideas. So I'll do mission, vision, I'll do team dynamics, and I have so much fun. You can throw whatever at me in the room, not physically, of course, but I'll have a lot of CEOs to work with. I've designed the whole 2.5 days, and day one, they come in, within a few hours, they throw a wrench in the whole thing, and I have to redo everything on the fly. And you know what? That's even more fun. That's even more fun to do. And I love to teach. I run a lot of programs. I recently was invited by Columbia University to come speak at their master's program. And I was like, they were like, do you have time? And I'm like, Columbia, you're knocking on my door. Do I have time?
Right.
Gosh, Columbia, I have time for you. So that's what I do from a corporate perspective. And with women, I'm very passionate about women leadership development. So I do something called Leading a Life of No Regrets for women. It's a transformational practice. So when you hit your 40s, right, you're going through a transformation. You're like, who am I? What's my identity? What's my legacy? So I help women discover that between 40 and 60 and lead a life of no regrets, a life of purpose. So there you go.
That's amazing. And the life of no regrets, women over 40, I think now that is so, I think it's needed anyway, but now in the climate that we're in now, I think that's super important. And I think that it's so needed. You know, there are women that, you're right, they hit, I think that when we're 40, because I'm old as dirt, so
you look really fabulous, and you're wise, Iris.
Yes, I have definitely lived and learned some lessons. But when you hit 40 and you don't think about it, that's really when things change. For me, my 40s were back then the best years. Mm-hmm. Because I learned so much. I learned who I was, mm-hmm. You know, how much shit I would take from who, mm-hmm. Right? And you get to a point in life that, and that's just the beginning. Yeah. So then you have the 50s and the 60s and and on. And the fact that you can facilitate helping them figure out who they are and what they're going to do at that point, I think is pretty huge. So not who, but of the women that you've worked with, what was your biggest challenge? Like what was the most challenging that you had out of working with a woman over 40 that was trying to figure out her stuff?
It's a couple things. One is these self-limiting beliefs women have about themselves. And the second thing is women tend to be nurturers and self-sacrificial. We are just wired to be that way. So they're always thinking about others in their life and how they can continue to serve them, and they put themselves in the back seat. So those are the two biggest challenges. So the first challenge, right? Self-limiting beliefs. Self-limiting beliefs come from the way you were raised, maybe culturally, the way, your parents raised you, or people around you ingrained it in you that, hey, as a woman, this is your place in society, this is your place in family, this is what you should do. Maybe, I come from India. So in India, I was fortunate to be raised by a set of just amazing, amazing parents. But it tends to be a more, slightly more orthodox society. And women are raised to say, oh, you'll take care of the house. You may go work, but you're still responsible for taking care of everything in the house, the family, the husband, the kids, the food, the lunches. And the husband is told, as a man, you have a certain place in the household. And that self-limiting belief, then you're raised with that. So women, when they want to do something more and break out of that mold, maybe they want to start their own business, but that means, more pressure on them, more time they will need to do that business. Then it's like, well, who's going to take care of so-and-so in my house? So that's one limiting belief, right? Like, I'm not meant to do this. I'm a woman. I was raised this way. And there are so many limiting beliefs that come up.
So how come, just to kind of, I think that drives me insane. Actually, it doesn't. Not I think. Why? How come the guy is like the king of the house? Why isn't society built around pampering the woman? Why can't the woman go to work and the guy have dinner and all that shit waiting for her when she gets home, and him take care? Shit, she does the job of popping the baby out. Why can't he take care of it? Right? I mean,
it's such a big job, such a painful job. Your body and mind changes forever after giving birth to a child.
I know. And then on top of it, you have to and I know that I want to just throw out there, I do not hate men. I love men. I think men are great. Yes, I'm gay, but that has nothing to do with, I know a lot of men in my life that I think are awesome, that aren't chauvinistic, that don't have those beliefs. But why does society, build it around, remember like in the 50s, right? It's like, you have to take care of your man, make sure your man is happy, make sure you're pardon me, but fuck that. What about us? And that was in the 50s. And now it's 2022. And there are still some people out there that believe that.
Yes, unfortunately, that is true. Unfortunately, in certain parts of the world and even in America, right?
In America,
there are these beliefs.
My voice is getting higher because
I know. I'm not passionate about this at all, Iris.
No, not at all.
So it's remnants. Part of it is a power play. Part of it is just men's limiting beliefs, right? Because they were raised a certain way. And it's hard when you don't see a good example, a role model as you're growing up. But I have to say, I have a really great set of friends, good family members. And a lot of the men in my family is, I can talk about my brothers especially, is they will chip in, they will do their thing. My ex as well, fantastic human being and really good, partner, father, taking their responsibility seriously. But, there are limitations in some other men. Sometimes it's also about, and I know it's shocking, you're going to lose it again, Iris, but it's about they get maybe jealous sometimes about if their wife or their partner is more educated or has a higher salary or a higher responsibility. It's a jealousy, it's an insecurity that comes up, which really doesn't need to be there. If two people have open communication and respect each other and really want to be in an equal partnership, it's possible for the woman to be also the sole wage earner. And there are many women out there. There's some beautiful examples of that where the man has just embraced it and said, you know what, I will take care of the household and I will raise the children. They're very far and few in between, but there are examples there. And then they are rewarded for it. But by the way, the people talk about what a great job they're doing raising those children. And then you're like, but you never talked about the woman that way because you think actually that's her role. So things are shifting slowly, but I want to be a part of, not part of this movement. I want to be, just ingrained into it, part of one of those people who are encouraging women to break out of that a little bit more and take charge. I also belong to Lean In, which is a, not-for-profit organization for women, for empowering them. And Lean In has a statement, which I absolutely love. It says, we help women be unapologetically ambitious. Nice. Say that loud, fast. But I love that. And I'm actually the incoming regional head for the Dallas-Fort Worth region for Lean In. Nice. And I just love it. I love where we can sit down and as women talk about our challenges and then come up with ideas and also, pump each other up, right? Like we need that. We love to see examples of others. And then we want to maybe emulate them. Sometimes they just need a little bit of a formula, a framework, and then they can go do it. I'm more of a maverick. I will just go out there and do it. And then, people are like, we want to follow you. I'm like, come on, let's all be together in it. Why not? So,
right. See, and I love the, empowering women because so much of our power has been taken away. And I think that and I'm just going to say it, I think that we are the stronger sex because I think if, a man tried to give birth, he would die. Well, he probably would die technically. But, I really feel that there is like you said, there's this insecurity, they're raised that way. And there are so many women out there that believe that they can't be more than what they are. Right. And I've run across them personally. And I'm the biggest cheerleader. I'm like, come on, let's do this. I'll help you any way that I can. I'll introduce you to people that can help you, whatever, because I never want somebody to think that they don't have the power to take control of their own life. I am not a coach, as you know, by any means. I probably would not be a good coach because I'd be like, what the, but, right. But I'm always there for people.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important that women realize we have a voice.
Yes.
We have a strength that is downplayed in society. And we need to take control of that. And the fact that you're, working with folks doing that I think that's amazing. So, so what made you decide to become an entrepreneur? Like, because you said you were an executive before and now you're working on your own. So what was the impetus or the catalyst to make you become an entrepreneur?
Ah, there was a lot of drama that drove me to that.
Well, that's what this is about, right? Kitchens get messy, so there you go.
Yes. Yeah. So my stories where one needs to pay attention to what is happening in one's life and take action in a timely manner. So what I mean by that is so as I mentioned, I was raised by two amazing human beings, and one of them, my dad, was a CEO of an organization in India. And I'm very much like my dad. And you know how kids, when they grow up, they want to be like their parents. And that was kind of my thing. And I was like, I'm going to be a manager, right? When I was a little kid. And eventually, I realized I have those traits and the capability to become that. And my dad always was like, I think I'm going to see you at a very high level in an organization. I went and got my MBA, and it was always a thing that I'm going to just rise up in the ranks. And I was rising up in the ranks. And when I was being groomed for a top level, position, like leading HR, I had this aha moment that I no longer wanted it because I understood the implications of that. And it was kind of work that I didn't enjoy. So what I was doing so far up until that point was I was managing, it's called global talent management. So what that means is the employees in the organization, are we taking care of them as individuals? Are we giving them the right learning opportunities, whatever you call it, training, development? Am I providing coaching for all the executives? Are we rolling out programs on, again, conflict management, all the soft skills, right? That makes us even more successful than just having that college knowledge or the theoretical knowledge. Right. And I was enjoying that, performance management and succession planning, for those of you who might be familiar with these terms, doing all that. And I'm an achiever. So no matter what you give me, I'm very responsible too. So these are like strengths finders, strengths you have. So it's like my boss would throw that to me. My CEO would throw a challenge out to me, and they turn around within a few weeks, it's done. It's like, okay, what else? Let's go. So they see the potential, and they're like, we want you to, look at like what would it take to lead this whole HR place. And I was just like, oh no, that does not align with my purpose. Right. My purpose is to bring the best out of people and do the one-on-one work to impact them. By looking at this overall, leading HR, there are so many other things that go into play, which I just didn't care for. So I had to acknowledge that, right? You have to play some politics there, and you have to, layoffs and some operation stuff. That's just not me. So I started getting disgruntled for 2 year. I would sit in my car and I would take deep breaths. I was so anxious going to work. Wow. Because I was like, I cannot do this. And then the amount of work I had was just stressful. So I was managing 34 countries. Wow. And 34 countries. So, right. So my calls would start early in the morning. They would end really late at night. And I was not present for my son. So the proudest achievement of my lifetime is my son. I have had a lot of professional accomplishments. And now as an entrepreneur, I've had some amazing success. But he will always be my proudest accomplishment. And he was conceived through IVF. So that, for those of you listening, that's just a painful process, ups and downs. So, he almost doesn't make it in this world. He comes 2.5 months early. And, so there's all this going on around that. And then I turn around and I don't pay attention to him for 9 years of his life.
Wow.
He's like crazy mama here, right? She's on the phone all the time, and then stressed out afterwards. And I can't have a decent conversation with her, high strung. And there's the dad who's like this hero, and he has this amazing relationship with my child. So that stress was on me the whole time. The work stress and the stress of not being a present parent for this big shining achievement, glory of my life, my child. And the way my stress manifested in me was my knees started locking up. And there was one night at work, it was 8:00 in the night. I was at my desk still. So I probably started my day at 7 in the morning. I was going till 8 in the night. And I tried to get up to walk, to start like packing up. And I couldn't because my knees locked up and they hurt so badly that I could not move. And I was just paralyzed from a mind perspective that what is happening to me? So what was happening is my muscles, because of the chronic stress, had been clamping up so much that I then started to have knee pain for 2 years straight.
Wow.
And stopped. And started losing hair. I got alopecia areata. Yeah, I know.
from stress.
Yeah, for stress. For those of you who may be just listening to this on the audio, Iris's jaw just dropped to the floor.
Yes, it it did. Thank you for that visual. I
Yes,
appreciate
yes,
that.
no worries. Yeah. But that was me. I was like, I didn't understand what was going on. So
Wow.
what was going on is there was a misalignment of my purpose to the organization's purpose. I work for a fabulous company. I work for amazing people, from the CEO down to my boss and, eventually my replacement who was brought in and my team. I liked the people, but I didn't like who I was becoming. And I didn't like the fact that I wasn't able to live my purpose. The other thing I wasn't able to do, which is, I think people should pay attention to this, is I wasn't fully operating from all my strengths. So they were not able to get the best out of me, like full. So, there's an analogy I use. I consider myself to be like a wild albatross. So this wild albatross is a bird that has the widest wingspan and can fly for like years together without landing anywhere. So it just roams around. So that's how I feel I am, is I have so much to give. And at that skill, talent wasn't being tapped, and my desire to give so much wasn't being tapped. So I finally made the decision. It was not an easy decision. It was tough. And also, while all this was going on, pay attention to your personal lives, right? Because personal and work is connected. My marriage was on the rocks. It was just, not where it needed to be. And we tried, but it just was not getting anywhere. So the pressure of the marriage, the pressure of the child not being, cool with mama there, and then the work pressures, it was too much. And I finally had to sit myself down and say, this cannot go on. And finding another job was not the solution. The solution really was I needed to work for myself. So that's kind of the really long story short. And I used to live in LA, by the way. So when I quit, I moved to Dallas to kind of, have a better family environment around us and more supportive environment. We have extended family here. So that's also very important, right? When you are, whatever you're doing, right? So to have your supporters, your cheerleaders around you. And my ex is one of my biggest cheerleaders, just so that you know. So we all have banded together to create this little village where we all can prosper and do well and do good things in life for everyone.
That's awesome. And I love that, because it does take a village, right? And I love that your ex is part of that village. I think that it's super important. A lot of families, when they split, when the parents split, the parents don't do a very good job of doing that co-parenting. They kind of tear each other down. I've seen both. I've seen both sides, and I love that. You guys are co-parenting, and you're getting along, and he's your biggest cheerleader. I think that's really phenomenal. And the support system is so important. Heather and I live in Lafayette, Indiana. I'm from New York. Heather's from Pittsburgh. We have no family here at all, right? It's she and I. We do have friends, but there are certain things you're not going to ask friends for. I don't care how good of a friend you are. You're not going to ask for certain things or for help with certain things, and that's so important. So I'm glad that you were able to leave LA and go to Dallas and get that support system, especially since you were trying to reconnect with your son. But now you've done a lot of traveling with your son, right?
Yes.
Because since you took this over, Pallavi and I talked about 2 months ago, maybe.
Yeah,
around that.
Yeah,
and we talked about this, and I thought that this was so cool because the places that you've taken your son. Why don't you tell us about that a little bit?
Yes. So before I tell you about the places and where we went, let me tell you about the story of how it came to that. It's a continuation of what I was saying about like trying to figure out my priorities in life, what my values were, and being true and honest to those values. So when we moved to Dallas, my plan was that I was going to take a year off work and just decompress, find myself, and also help my son understand like the real me, and of course rekindle a relationship, right? Really have a good relationship there. So within a week of moving to Dallas, I was driving the car. He was sitting in the back. At that point, he was 9. He could sit in the back. Now he sits in the front. So he told me, he's like, Mom, you're so different. It was only 1 week. It took 1 week of just no pressure And for him to see the real me, and I teared up. I was just like, I know exactly what this child is saying, and thank goodness he's able to see that. So what happened is I made a commitment to myself, and I think we all need to do this, is take periodic time for ourselves to take a break and refresh, reset, reconnect. Talk to ourselves about what is it that we want out of life. Where are we at right now? Where do we want to go? What is the gap? What's holding us back? And that's what I wanted to do in that whole year. Is I wanted to figure out who am I and where do I want to go. So I promised myself that I would take significant time and then start my business. And as I was doing that, a cousin of mine was getting married in India. So I started planning my travels as I always did, 2 weeks, right? Because that's ingrained in you when you're in corporate. You may not take more than 2 weeks off. You are indispensable. That is not true. Everybody's dispensable. So just know that. Yes. So I was like planning this, and then somebody happened to say, so where are you going to go? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I asked myself, why are you limiting yourself to 2 weeks? So I was like, well, I'm my own boss. And my boss said, go wherever you want to go.
You have a nice boss.
I have a nice boss. Yes. Most days I like her. There are some days when I have to sit her down and say, what are you doing, Pallavi? Right. So my boss was like, just go for it. That's also a part of my personality is, when something comes in, I just go for it. Right. So I'm 0 or 100. So I started to do more planning around travel, and I'm a travel junkie. So prior to this, for work, for business, I had already been to some 25, 30 plus countries. And I'm nomadic in nature too. My parents moved every 4 years. So, I tended to move a lot. And I love cultures and people and food. It makes us better human beings when we can understand others and the perspective of them. So my trip became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I started to engage my son and said, hey, where do you want to go? Give me a few of your countries and cities. So we ended up doing around the world in 80 days. So that was a full 2.5 months. 2.5 months of travel. So we took 2 backpacks and 2 carry-ons. That was it. I was like, we are not lugging big suitcases and all, because we were going to tiny places in tiny airplanes sometimes, or on boats, etc. And we literally had, our shoes had holes in them because we walked so much. Wow. Some days they were bleeding. I am taking this 9-year-old with me. So we did 13 countries, 27 cities, and 3 continents. And we did a lot of East Asia. From India, we went like Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, that side. And I also, helped him see a lot more of India. India, we actually traveled with family, which was so nice. We, of course, had the family wedding. And then from East Asia, we went to Europe, and he had a few bucket list items. Yeah, 9-year-old bucket list items.
9-year-old, wow. That's
So he took me back to countries where I'd already been, like London and Paris, but he wanted to visit. So it was nice to see it from a 9-year-old's perspective.
Sure.
And revisit places that I really enjoyed. My bucket list was Santorini, Ia in Greece, which was, just absolutely wonderful. We did Berlin. He's a World War II fan, so he wanted some of those countries in there, Vienna, Czech Republic. So it was lovely. And then we ended up in the Americas. We ended up visiting family, doing Washington, D.C., and we went, our senator, arranged a tour for us. So it was fantastic. So nice. We ended on even a high note, going to the Capitol, and it was lovely. But my son did say at the end of the tour, he said, Mom, this was a lot. I hardly got my video game time. Next time, can we not do any like hotels and travel? And you know what happened next time? COVID happened. So it was, our timing was very fortunate, where we went a year before COVID hit, actually 9 months before COVID hit. But then ironically, he turned around within a year and a half. He said, I would like to travel, Mom. I said, but you said you never wanted to travel again. He's like, no, I wanted to travel.
Nice. So now you couldn't travel during COVID, but you are traveling. Will be traveling now, or?
Yes. We have a Puerto Rico trip coming up and a Machu Picchu trip coming up.
Oh, see, that's on my bucket list. I want to go to Machu Picchu.
Yes. So let's talk once I'm done with my trip. I'll give you all kinds of pointers. It's coming up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That is amazing. And it's amazing that you were able to, recognize that and have that adventure, with him at 9 years old, and just think, of all the new adventures that you're going to be having, and that I'm sure you've had during COVID. I mean, good Lord, that must have been, so how did you guys navigate that? Because you and your ex weren't together.
Correct.
You're both in Dallas, right?
Yes, we're both in Dallas.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So how did we navigate it? So first of all, just to kind of finish the story, the bond between me and my son, thanks to that trip, is just, it flourished. It just grew so much. And I got to see a side of him that I had never seen, and he got to see, sides of me that he had never seen. We truly grew to respect each other and learn and understand how each one operates. And he was a little man. He became a little man on that trip where even at 9-year-old, he was taking care of his mom. He was like, there was a time when in Paris, but the subway system is so old, right? And I love that. We have some of that old world thing there. But in some of those places, there are no elevators, there are no escalators, and the stairways are really steep, and it's multiple levels. So there was a multi-level stairway where you look down, you could get dizzy. And we had the 2 suitcases, right? And the backpack. So usually I would carry the suitcases because they were too heavy for him. So he told me, no, stop, Mom. I got this. I'm going to do this one suitcase at a time. You stand there with our backpacks. He then struggled with one suitcase halfway. And then a man noticed he was doing that. So the man ran to him, and then they both did both the suitcases. And I was just so proud of him. I didn't ask him to do that. Mm-hmm. And, it was like a learning. It was growing for both of us to do that. So that was the story for that. And now, of course, I forget what was the question you asked me.
So first off, how old is your son?
He's 12 now.
So that was 3 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So, no.
I remember. COVID. How did we navigate COVID? Yes. Okay. So we, like everybody else, right? Everybody was shocked and surprised with what happened, where all of a sudden the rug was pulled under us, right? And everybody had to stay at home and do Zoom, etc. So for me, I'm a person who always looks at the glass half full. I always look for opportunity whenever there is a challenge, right? There's always something we can do. So in my coaching practice, a lot of times I'll talk to my client about your sphere of control. So, we have a sphere of control, and then around us are things we cannot control. So we all as a family, we kind of, sat down and we talked about what can we control, what can't we control. So the things we could control were very high quality time experiences. And during COVID, my niece unfortunately had an accident, and she had to be in the hospital for about over a month. Okay. And the father and mother had to take turns because they won't allow both parents at the same time. Actually, more than a month. So I had my nephew in my charge then. So there I am with these 2 boys who were the same age, just hanging out at home all day long. So we started a practice of going on hikes early in the morning. So I'm going on hikes with these 2 10-year-old boys who in the beginning moaned and groaned and complained. And eventually they were like, let's go. It's 6 a.m. We're ready to go on a hike. So
nice.
So we started doing included practices like that. We would play, the neighborhood kids would kind of come, and we would maintain our distance, but play games outside. So that's what you do. And I also reached out to some colleagues and friends who I knew didn't have like support and family. And we started this practice of, when I say we, it was my brother, sister-in-law, and sometimes my ex. We would bring out chairs this is Dallas, Texas, right? So you have lots of place you have in the driveway. So we would have driveway gatherings, but with really a lot of distance out there. Yeah. And, people would wear their masks, and people appreciated it. They would ask, hey, when is the next kind of, driveway gathering happening? And that's how we maintain our sanity. We reach out to older family members and friends, and sometimes help them out with whatever they needed. So that's how we kept our sanity.
Nice. That's awesome. So now, if you were an entrepreneur, or if you weren't an entrepreneur, you might not have been able to have that freedom, right? Even at a high corporate level. So, okay, so you went from corporate to taking a year off to becoming an entrepreneur. There are a lot of people out there listening, and this podcast is for people who are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs, seasoned entrepreneurs in the C-suite, and really anybody who wants to listen. But those are the people I think that would get value from from these conversations. So for the person who's in a job that they hate and they want to leave and they're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, or just somebody who's just, has that entrepreneurial spirit and they've never experienced it before, or they've never thought that they could do it, or thought that they'd be ready to take that step. What advice do you have for those folks?
All right. Lots of advice. The first thing I would tell you is probably don't do what I did, which was I just gave notice. I did not have a plan in mind. And I was fortunate because I had been very good with my money. And I had a safety net. I also had a very supportive family, my extended family, who, reached out to me and said, hey, come, you can stay with us. We'll support you. So what I would say is, if you're going to do a very dramatic step like I did, make sure you are good. You're set for about a year or two, because starting a business and having it take off, majority of the times is a long process. You could be in that small minority where it just skyrockets. Hey, good for you. But the first thing is know that you have some level of support, financial stability, etc. Because there are many unexpected things that can happen as you start your business. So at least 1 to 2 years of savings, backup support, or maybe another spouse who has a job, then you're good. So the number one thing outside of this, what I would say is know your why. Why do you want to leave your job? Yes, you're miserable. I get it. But then what are you going to do as an entrepreneur? So what is that why for you? So my why was I wanted to lead a life of purpose. I truly wanted to align with my values, and I wanted to give back. I wanted to give back to women. I wanted to give back to, corporate executives. I wanted to give back to the environment and to children. Those are all my causes. And of course, I wanted to have that good relationship with my child. And I realized that the more I stayed in corporate and the higher I went, it would be just tougher. And it was my choice, right? And then what I did was, and I have this right here, I want to show you. I did an exercise on myself and I asked myself, what are my top 5 values? So those are my top 5 values that came up: family, freedom, challenge, influence, strategic. So I would say do a lot of work on yourself first. Figure out your values, figure out your why. Why do you want to leave? What are you going to do when you become an entrepreneur? How are you going to make a difference, right? And then start, while you're in your job, if you can, start putting together a vision, okay? Not a business plan right away, a vision. What is the vision for your life? Your vision about, 2 to 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. I'll tell you my vision. My vision is every 2 years, I want to do a round the world in 80 days trip.
Wow.
That's the vision. And then another part of the vision is I want to make an impact on this world, right? I want to further causes for women. I want to be very much connected with my son, which is part of that around the world in 80 days. That encompasses it. So when you have this vision, it's that story you tell yourself. This is what I envision my life to be. And then everything else falls in play. Okay, so then if that's your vision around the world in 80 days, what do you need? Well, I need so much, money. I need so much time to take off. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to run my practice from, January through maybe May, and then September through there, because summer comes in the middle. So then, things start getting into place. So you have your vision. Then what you need to do is you need to have goals. And then a goal without a plan is just a dream. So you need to have a plan then, right? You have to be very disciplined. Being an entrepreneur is about discipline. Mm-hmm. I don't have that much discipline. Let me tell you that, Iris. And I think you and I are in the same boat.
We've had this conversation. I have like zero. I mean, the fact that I can run my own business and not be homeless is like, it's a miracle because, I don't. Nah.
Yeah, but look, it's a miracle because you want it so badly that you then say, let me understand what my strengths are. Let me understand what my gaps are.
Right.
And then you work on that. You become very conscious. You become very intentional. And then if you need to, you find help. You find people who are good at what you're not good at. Just like, in leadership positions in corporate, it's the same thing.
That's
Surround
what makes
yourself.
somebody a good manager, right? Is,
Yeah.
you know your weaknesses or the things that you could be better at, and you surround yourself with the people to fill the gaps. And then you
Yeah.
have a really good, cohesive, strong team. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a process, right? So be very clear on your purpose, be very clear on your values, your why, understand your strengths. Do an exercise on yourself. 80 years, when I'm 80 years old, what is the kind of life I wish I had lived? And then make your way back from there. So that clarity will then lead you into, whatever business you want to start. And there are a few other things which I'm sure will come up in the next few questions, but I'll end it.
No, I think that's really good advice. A lot of people come on and they say, have your money, have a plan. And some people can't. Some people, somebody may get fired, and rather than find another job, which is, what happened to me the second time around, I was like, I'm not going to collect unemployment. I'm going to start a business. Okay. No plan, just knew what I was good at, knew that I knew people who could help me execute it. And that's what I did it. And I was I'm very fortunate that I have, a wife who does very well. So I had a bit of a buffer, and she supports me in everything, even, when there's times like, seriously, we're paying for the business again, so now we don't. Now, like, nothing from our stuff goes into the business. Everything for the business is the business. And, but I was very fortunate, in the beginning to have that.
Yeah.
And there are people out there that don't. So, okay. So now, there's seasoned entrepreneurs that are listening to this. And, we've all gone through a struggle. We've all, had that moment when we were doing this that was like, holy shit, what am I even thinking? What makes me think I can do this? And, I know that a lot of people listening to this are people who are entrepreneurs, and they started their business 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and they've gone through struggles. But there's always, when you own it, there's always struggles, right? There's always obstacles, and there's always lessons that need to be learned. For that, what's a struggle that you had to overcome to be able to become an entrepreneur? Because we didn't talk about your road to entrepreneurship. We talked about your year off. So when you decided to become an entrepreneur, you had your vision, and you had I see I'm freezing on here. So how did you start that?
So you cut out a little bit, Iris. I think you're saying, how did you start your business? Is that what you said?
So yeah. So what was you took your year off, right?
Mm-hmm.
You took a year off, and then you started your business. So did you know what you were going to be doing? Did you have a clientele lined up? How did you fill your pipeline in the beginning? And then after you answer that, for a seasoned entrepreneur, what struggles are you either going through now, or have you gone through as a seasoned entrepreneur that can maybe help them through?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm in year 3 of my business, and touch wood, I've had some really great successes. So let me talk about year 1, and then I'll come into year 3 here. So year 1, I came in knowing fully well, year 1 was all about infrastructure setup. It was all about putting the right systems in place, getting the right networks going in terms of people. And also for me to work a little bit on myself and figure out, are there any certifications I need, or what else are people looking for in individuals like myself? So for me, coming from corporate into entrepreneurship is a very, very interesting and jarring journey, honestly, right? So I'll give you a simple example. And it's just mind-boggling how simple it is, but it was such a big problem for me. So in corporate, my calendar was filled by other people. So there was not a single day where I had a single moment free on my calendar because I had all these projects going on at all times. I had a great team of people who, they had maybe their one-on-ones or they needed to check in with me. I had my client groups, which is my executives, or the other 34 countries and executives there. So always somebody or the other had something on the calendar, and things were chugging along on their own in a way, right? Yes, we have your goals and all, but it all lines up. As an entrepreneur, guess what? There was nobody putting anything on my calendar.
No, no, you got to fill your own calendar.
You have to fill your,
for sure. Yeah.
And that
Wow.
was such a struggle for me, So I had to learn what it would take to fill my calendar, starting from very simple things like discipline. What time am I going to start work and what time am I going to end work? I'm an entrepreneur. I can start at noon and I can end at 1. Who's going to say what to me, right? But then that's not going to pay the bills.
No.
So then on your calendar, then what goes in there? How do you divide your time? Because you're working on the business, working in the business. What do those activities look like? So when you're starting out, in the beginning, you're going to have a lot of time, right? So you'll obviously focus your energies on certain things. But as you get seasoned, you need to start looking at chunks of time when you are very disciplined. So I'm going to go back and forth between, starting the business and seasoned entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So this is for seasoned entrepreneurs. You have to be very disciplined on the time you block to work, let's say, on the business. So for example, what's your marketing strategy look like? Do you need to refresh it, right? So are you setting around chunks of time on your calendar to say, let me do reflection on that. Let me do an analysis. If I'm doing LinkedIn posts, am I setting aside time to do the LinkedIn post? Am I monitoring that? Am I responding to that? Or billing. If you are a one-man shop, like right now, I'm a one-woman shop. I'm getting help shortly here. But then, when do you do your billing? What about those networking calls with potential clients or, business development? You need to have discipline and put those chunks on your calendar. And then when do you do the actual work itself, right? Actual work should take up more time. All this should take up lesser time, but it still takes up time. Mm-hmm. The other thing I would give seasoned entrepreneurs is have solid systems in place, and if you find that a system is not working, don't wait for too long. Go ahead and figure that out, whatever that system is, and work on it. And those are some of the mistakes I made, and I'm still continuing, right? Year 3, I'm now revamping a lot of my systems and paying attention to them. I let them be for a bit, and I was paying a lot of money. Like, for example, if you have a landing page you're using, or you're using this marketing service or a texting service. So then I had all these things that were, I was no longer using them the way I was, but then I couldn't break the system because everything would fall. So I just let it go for a while, but I was paying a lot of money for it. So now I'm in the process of reevaluating all those systems. For the newer people, you have to be willing to work harder than you ever did in your entire life. So if you thought your corporate job was demanding and you were just tired of it, welcome to the even harder work of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
You gotta love what you're doing, or you have to have a very, very serious, a compelling reason to be in business and have that in front of you front and center. So when I first started working, I was doing 12, 15, whatever hour days in my entrepreneurial journey, but I was very cognizant of that family time that I had committed to. So I would make chunks of time in the middle of my day, because I can control it, to have quality time with my son. That was my number one thing. So then as an entrepreneur, you need to then also have your chunks of time to do what you are doing, right? If it's your website setup or whatever else, make sure you're doing all that and paying due attention to things. Also, for new people, talk to other entrepreneurs. Go knock on doors, and knock on doors of seasoned ones, knock on doors on the ones who are starting out, but who are a little ahead of you. I did that a lot, and I'm so grateful for the people who gave me time. There was this one gentleman who told me, and this advice is still in my head, stuck till this date. And this was, 3+ years ago. He said, you have to learn to differentiate yourself. There are so many coaches out there. There are so many people doing the same thing. You have to learn to differentiate yourself. And I didn't understand that in the beginning. I was like, what do you mean? Look at me. I look different. Right? I mean, jokes aside, I do, It was funny when the whole George Floyd thing happened and DE&I was a thing. People were just contacting me based on the color of my skin, which was kind of jarring for me and shocking, because I was like, contact me because I'm a credible person and because I deliver value and I'm really good at what I do.
Right.
Took me a little moment to kind of adjust to that. And I know I've completely deviated, but go and talk to other people who have done this, who have succeeded and who have failed, and learn from them. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. It is not worth making the same mistakes other people have made. Make your own new mistakes.
Right.
I would say don't be afraid of making mistakes because you learn so quickly. Oh man, you're not going to go do that mistake again, but you have to learn on your own. So I think those would be some very big lessons, I would say, for new and seasoned entrepreneurs.
Wow. And it's so true because we talk about this all the time on this podcast. People think, woohoo, I'm working for myself and, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going to make all this money. And no, it doesn't, it's not always like that. Yes, you're working for yourself. Yes, you can make your own calendar. I'm fortunate in that I've worked remotely probably for the last 20 years almost, right? So I was working remote before working remote was cool. So I had disciplines in place. But I remember when I first started, I was working at this company up in Chicago, and I was the vendor manager. So I was traveling like all over the country. And it got to the point that, I lived in Lombard, and to drive into downtown Chicago, some days was just a lot. So some days I would work from home. And I think the first week was really hard because I didn't have to be in the office. So I had an extra hour to sleep in. Well, then the extra hour to sleep in turned into 2 extra hours to sleep in. And then it was like, oh, well, I can meet my friend for lunch. And then it was like, so after a week, I looked back on the week and at what I'd gotten done. And I got everything that I was supposed to get done. Because then the next week I'm flying out to California for something or whatever. And I got back from California and I said, okay, the week before I left, I got everything done at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. I can't work like that.
No.
So I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be in the office at 8 o'clock. I'm going to be in the office at 8 o'clock.
Yes.
And so I set the alarm for 7:30. I got up, I took a shower. I didn't have to drive into work. So, had time for whatever. And then 8 o'clock, I started working.
Yep.
And at 5 o'clock, I was done. Some nights I wasn't done till 6 or 7 if we were, getting somebody new in. But, and I started that discipline back then. So I've been doing this for a really long time. It's not easy. And it's also you work for yourself, but you also work for your clients.
Yeah.
And you're working on your client's schedule, not your schedule, as much as as much as we can control that. If a client can only meet at a certain time, well, then that's when you're going to meet, right? So, I had a client who was she was in vacation on Hawaii, but we needed to meet. And so 6 o'clock at night for her was midnight here. Like, I didn't realize that was the difference. So I was like, oh, we can meet at 6.
Yeah.
And then it's like the day of the meeting. I'm like, in the meeting at 6 p.m. And no, actually it was at 3 p.m. because I thought that they were on Pacific time because I didn't, because I'm a dumbass sometimes. And then I was like, oh shit, this isn't until midnight tonight. So, but it was fine. I had the meeting, everything was fine. But so, people also need to realize that, you're not always on your own.
Right.
Your own clock and yeah. So
you have to be flexible. So Iris, can I say something here real quick? I think you made a really very, very important point. Is as an entrepreneur, you have to have that discipline on when you're going to start your day, when you're going to end it, but then have that flexibility. So that was a part of my struggle. And I want to share, can I share like a technique?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We have time and you have, you're good.
Yes.
I'm watching the clock for you. This is probably going to go over an hour, but for you, you'll get out of here on time.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So thank you for sparking that thought when you said the 8 to 5, right? You could work 8 to 8 as an entrepreneur. That's up to you. Make sure you take your breaks and all that stuff. But the most helpful thing for me, and then I started incorporating this into my coaching practice, And when I run my programs for leading a life of no regrets with women, I teach them this technique, and it is a brilliant technique. It is by no means my technique. I have robbed and used it and duplicated it from other amazing
Right.
people. But I don't know if I have it here, but I will. Oh, I don't have my notebook. I was going to do a show and tell, but here's what it is as an entrepreneur, especially when you're starting out new, but this applies to seasoned as well. I mean, at any point in your life, what I do is, in order to get disciplined and figure out the direction I want for the week, what I do is, on Monday mornings, you can do this on Sunday if you want. This is called the power hour on Monday. You can do a power hour on Sunday night. You sit down and you look at your week and you say, what is it that I want to accomplish in this week? So come up with 3 big things, or 3 things, if you want to call it. Like, these are your goals for the week. Now, of course, this is tied to your bigger goals and it's tied to your vision, right? So it's like a big picture that's broken down into the week. So you say, what are the 3 things I'm going to accomplish for this week? Write that on top of your page, my goals for the week. Then what I do is, and I do this manually, I do it on a piece of paper, because I just find it very cathartic when you write things down. Your brain connects with you on a different level than you type. So just know that it's just human basic nature for us to connect better when we write. So you write down and you say, okay, on Monday morning, what time am I going to start my day? And you write down, okay, then this hour I'm going to do this hour I'm going to do this hour I'm going to take a break, this hour I'm going to connect with my client, whatever it is. Your day is mapped out. Then at the end of the day, you check in with yourself. And I love to do the check marks or the crosses. And you say, I did that, I didn't do this. Don't beat yourself up if you didn't get to something. Have a very objective conversation with yourself and say, what got in the way and what can I do differently tomorrow? What additional resources do I need? Did I get in my own way? Then what can I do about myself, right? So, and then you do the Tuesday, if you want to do it on Tuesday, Wednesday, or you can do it in advance. I do it every day because, then you can have some rollovers. And then at the end of the week, you evaluate, did I meet those 3 big goals? And then how did I do? So I have this visual, and sometimes it's not very pretty, but I have notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of this, and I can go and see the patterns. So I went from working 12 to 15-hour days to now I kind of do 6 to 7 hours now. I don't tend to do more than that because I've got my systems in place, and it's just your growth as an entrepreneur. But I find that system to be so helpful, and so many people, I have coached them, they use it, and you can use it in any aspect of your life, not just as an entrepreneur. So
do you want to map that out on like a white paper or something, and we can use that, like people who listen to this episode, they can go to my website, which is the podcast, the cookbookpodcast.com, and they can download it. And we can direct them to your website as well, where they can download this. And it'll be like added content for people who were listening to this.
It will be. Here, let me show you a visual. It's horrible, but look at the visual.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So for people who are listening, holy shit, there's like a lot there. I would cry. I don't think I'm that disciplined.
Well, and honestly, Iris, I'm with you because we've already done this, right? We have similar styles.
Yep.
But there are days and sometimes there are weeks when I fail my own system. I fall hard because I already have a very busy calendar, right? So it's already on my Outlook and I know what's happening. So I will ignore my system, but then, I suffer.
Right.
And I pay the price for it and I get back on my wagon. So don't be disappointed if that happens. Just give yourself grace and you can get back on it. But I like your idea. I will map out on a clean piece of paper and you can put it on your website.
There you go. So, when you said about being different and having a differentiator, and we have like a couple of minutes left. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. One, what is your differentiator? What makes you different from the other coaches? We've had a couple of coaches on here, and everybody has something different. So why is somebody going to want to work with Pallavi as opposed to another coach? What is the thing that makes you stand out and different?
Yeah, so there are. I'll break it down into the corporate world and then the leading a life of no regrets practice, and some of it kind of blends. So in the corporate world, what differentiates me is I have been in the trenches where these executives have been. That's number one. But the biggest thing is I bring what I call is my challenging style to the table. So when I'm working with my clients, I have this ability to look through and tell where you're holding yourself back, where your self limiting beliefs might be. And I am not afraid to ask that really difficult question for you to think about and ponder on. I was also raised to be an egalitarian type person, which is egalitarian means you treat everybody the same way. You respect whoever the front desk person you come into, or the service staff that's there, or the CEO. So no matter who I talk to them the same way. And that's what makes me successful is when I talk to my CEOs, I'm talking to a human being. I'm not sitting there and, then what do you call it? Oh my gosh, the word, like, is it pandering or is it like, being very subservient to people? That doesn't come into play. I think I can use that word right. Yeah. So, and I bring my whole self into the practice where we talk about a lot of purpose stuff, because a lot of people who are in leadership positions are thinking of legacy and purpose. So we talk about that. So that's the differentiator in corporate, is bringing that challenge to the table for them. And when you're working with a coach, make sure they're credentialed, right? Some kind of credentialing. So I was very appalled when somebody told me first time, you should have a credential. And I was like, what do you mean? I have all this corporate experience and I was being tapped to be like, this high level position in HR. And once I got my International Coaching Federation credentials, I understood what it takes to become credentialed, the discipline one needs, and how much you can learn. I mean, it was a humbling process, and I continue to learn and get my hours. So make sure you work with the experience as well as a credential coach. In my Leading a Life of No Regrets practice, what differentiates me is that whole philosophy by itself, right? And I have a 3-pillar system, so that's the differentiator. So what I teach these women 40 through 60, we run like 11-week program, and these women are from all walks of life. A lot of them are executives because they're either trying to do a side hustle or they're trying to do legacy work and pave the path when they retire or resign, or they're getting ready to resign but they want a plan in place. So the 3-pillar framework is uncover your purpose. So I truly believe each one of us has a purpose within us. So I don't say discover your purpose. It's uncover your purpose, right? Know your why. Second thing is we create a winning mindset. So what is it going to take for you to get past those limiting beliefs, that winning mindset? And the third one is taking courageous action. So it's 2 things. It's courage and action. So I help them come up with a very detailed plan, that could be a few months, few years out there. And I have some amazing women who are doing incredible work based on that. So that's my differentiator and I bring my whole authentic self to the table. What you see is what you get. There are no games, there are no.
Right.
So there you go.
Awesome. Well, that's really great. And the, leading a life of no regrets is, I love that. And so for anybody out there listening, right, who's 40 to 60, and, you're thinking about, leaving, or, you're not really sure what your purpose is, reach out to Pallavi. Her LinkedIn and her website is scrolling. For those of you who can't see it, it's Pallavi Ridout on LinkedIn, and the website it just didn't scroll. Where'd it go?
Right there.
Thank you. EngageMotivate.com. No, LeadMotivate.com. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't even read my own prompt. And so first off, I want to thank you for taking time out today. I know, everyone's time is valuable, and, I really appreciate you taking this hour and change. Actually, it's been way more than an hour. I know today, to talk to me and to talk to my audience, and hopefully they become your audience as well. And hopefully, people will hear about you and want to work with you. So the last question that I ask everybody is, and I think we all know the answer to this because you've said it, but what lights your fire? What are you passionate about beyond anything else?
You know what lights my fire is the desire and the ability to lead the type of life I want every day. So I ask myself every day, are you leading a life of no regret? Today, what did you do to lead that life of no regret? What action did you take? And it all then goes back and lines up, right, with values and purpose and passion. Like this podcast right here. I enjoy your company, right? Let's get that straight.
Right.
we connected. We are kindred spirits. We know that.
We are. We did.
Yeah.
We did.
but even this podcast, right? How does it align with my activity for today? And is it just a, hey, I like Iris, let me talk to her? Well, it's part of that, but part of that is then talking to people who want to live that fire, who want to, say, I want to be proud of what I did. And I want to spread that message to everyone to say, don't be afraid, take that chance, take the risk. And to me, that's what lights my fire, is the ability to light other people's fire. And I'm not afraid to speak and share my story and the details, because some of it is, it's not the best, right? It's like you've gone through these struggles and you've had these failures and, you decided to exit corporate. So it depends on how you look at it. It's like I took charge of the situation and I said, this is the kind of a life I want to lead. And so the ability to lead that kind of a life, the ability to go to Machu Picchu in September. I mean, oh my gosh.
I can't wait for pictures.
Oh my gosh.
I want to see lots of pictures.
Yeah. So
I don't know if you have my number. I will text you my number so that you have it. So you can text me the pictures from.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. It's a 4-day, 3-night hike. So
wow. Good Lord. Okay. So I will live vicariously through you. And you can tell me how that was. So thank you again for being on and sharing your story and your passion and just you. Thank you for sharing you.
My pleasure, Iris.
I appreciate it. And
yes, thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And for all you people who've been hanging in here with us for, an hour and plus, thank you so much every week for tuning in and listening, and for the comments that you've been sending in. I really appreciate everything. I love the fact that you're listening to this while you're, working out, and then I can feel like I'm helping you work out, or working out with you, or cooking, or whatever it is that you're doing. I really appreciate you taking the time. So until next time, I'm going to sign off for today. Iris Goldfeder with the Cookbook, and you know what? Go out, find what lights your fire. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.